Jesse Livermore sat in the bathroom of the luxury Sherry Netherland Hotel in New York, staring blankly at his reflection in the gold-trimmed mirror. In his pocket, he had a Colt automatic pistol. In his bank accounts, he had $5 million locked in ironclad trust funds. But as he looked at the cold steel of the barrel, he realized a devastating truth. He had millions of dollars, but the market had already stolen his soul. Jesse Livermore was the most feared trader on Wall Street, a man who made $100 million in a single day while the rest of the world jumped out of office windows. Yet, on this rainy November afternoon in 1940, he pulled the trigger. How did the most brilliant mind in trading history lose everything to the very game he conquered? To understand the terrifying karma of the market, we have to go back to the beginning. Born in 1877 to a poor farming family, Jesse hated the dirt, the cows, and the prospect of a quiet, struggle-filled life. At just 14 years old, with only $5 in his pocket, he ran away to Boston. He found a job as a board boy at a local brokerage, writing stock prices on a massive blackboard. But Jesse didn't just write the numbers. He read them. He noticed patterns. He realized that human behavior never changes, and because of that, the numbers on the board always repeated themselves. He had discovered the foundation of what we now call the psychology of money. By age 15, he made his first trade, turning a $5 investment into a $3 profit. Within a few years, he had won so much money from local, unregulated betting shops that they banned him from entering. They called him the Boy Plunger. Jesse packed his bags and headed to New York City. He was ready to play in the big leagues. In Wall Street, Jesse became a ghost. He traded with massive size, silently waiting for the perfect moment to strike. His first massive win came in 1906, during the San Francisco earthquake. While the country was in shock, Jesse sensed a market collapse. He shorted Union Pacific stock, betting it would drop. The trade made him $3 million in days. But that was nothing compared to 1907. The market began to crash. Panic swept through New York. Banks were failing and investors were ruined. Jesse saw the fear and doubled down, shorting every major stock. He made $1 million in a single afternoon. The crash was so severe that J.P. Morgan himself sent a personal messenger to Jesse, begging him to stop shorting the market to prevent the entire American economy from collapsing. Jesse agreed, closed his shorts, and went long. He was hailed as a financial hero. But his crowning achievement, and his ultimate curse, came in October 1929. The Great Depression was about to begin. For months, the market had surged, driven by retail greed and leverage. Everyone was buying. But Jesse saw the rotten foundation. He knew the millionaire minds of his era had grown arrogant. He spent weeks quietly building a short position worth over $70 million that on October 29th, Black Tuesday, the market crumbled. While brokers wept on the floor of the exchange and families lost their life savings, Jesse sat in his secret office, completely calm. When he returned home that evening, his wife, Dorothy, was in tears. She had heard about the crash and assumed they were ruined. She had already packed the family silver, expecting the bank to seize the house. Jesse smiled gently. He walked over to her, handed her a glass of champagne, and whispered, "We are not ruined, Dorothy. Today I made $100 million. At that moment, Jesse Livermore was one of the richest men on earth. He had beaten the system. He was invincible, or so he thought. The tragedy of Jesse Livermore was that he was a genius at making money, but a complete amateur at the psychology of money. He believed his own myth. He thought he was the master of the market, forgetting that the market is a wild, unpredictable beast that cannot be tamed. After 1929, his financial habits began to rot from the inside out. Instead of protecting his massive fortune, Jesse grew bored. He began to break his own ironclad trading rules. He traded out of ego, not out of analysis. He took massive, emotional positions to prove to Wall Street that he could move the market at will. But the market always collects its debts, and it does so with heavy interest. Jesse started losing. millions at a time. He tried to revenge trade, doubling his bets to win back what he had lost. It was the classic mistake of a novice, executed by the greatest trader in the world. By 1934, just 5 years after making $100 million, Jesse Livermore stood in a federal court, filing for bankruptcy. He had lost every single cent. The houses, the yachts, the private railway cars, the cash, all gone. Even worse, his personal life was in ruins. His wife divorced him. His oldest son was shot during a domestic dispute. And the entire financial community that once whispered his name in awe now looked at him with pity. He was a broken relic of a bygone era. Jesse's third wife, Harriet, had managed to save a small portion of his fortune by placing $5 million in an irrevocable trust fund before the final crash. Legally, Jesse was still rich. He would never starve. He would always live in luxury hotels. But to a man like Jesse, the trust fund was a daily insult. It was a monument to his failure. It was money he couldn't trade, money he couldn't risk, money that proved he could no longer play the game. On November 28, 1940, Jesse entered the Sherry Netherland Hotel. He sat in the bar, drank 2 old-fashioned cocktails, and wrote an 8-page suicide note to his wife. The note read, "My dear Leo, I cannot help it. Things have been bad with me. I am tired of fighting. I cannot carry on any longer. This is the only way out." He walked into the cloakroom, pulled out his Colt automatic, and ended his life. The man who had mastered the markets had been completely destroyed by his own mind. The story of Jesse Livermore is not just a tragedy of Wall Street. It is the ultimate lesson in financial habits and the karma of wealth. Jesse broke 3 rules the market never forgives. He traded with ego instead of discipline. He chased losses instead of cutting them. And he believed he was bigger than the game itself. Every trader who has ever blown an account knows at least one of these 3 laws personally. Most know all 3. The market does not care about your genius. It does not reward past victories. It only responds to what you do right now with discipline, patience, and humility. Jesse Livermore had the talent. He had the vision. He had the instincts of a legend. But he forgot the most important rule of all. The market is always right, and no one is too big to lose. Until next time, trade with discipline, live with humility, and remember, karma is always watching the tape. But here is the question that keeps me up at night. If Jesse Livermore, a man who could read the market like no one before or after him, if he could fall this far, what does that say about the rest of us? Because the terrifying truth is that Jesse's story is not unique. It is not a Wall Street fairy tale from a distant era. It is happening right now in brokerage accounts, in crypto wallets, in trading apps on the phones of people who believe they have finally cracked the code. The names change. The markets change. The instruments change. But the ego never changes. And the karma is always patient. It does not strike immediately. It waits. It lets you win and win and win again until you are absolutely certain you cannot lose. And then, it collects everything. Jesse left us something more valuable than any trade he ever made. He left us a mirror. And the real question, the one only you can answer, is this. When you look into that mirror, do you recognize yourself? I want to know what you think. Did Jesse's story hit you differently than you expected? Was it the genius, the ego, or the ending that stayed with you? Tell me in the comments, 1 sentence, 1 word, whatever you felt. I read every single one. And if this kind of story is what you have been looking for, the real psychology behind wealth, power, and the consequences of forgetting humility, then you already know what to do. Subscribe. The next story is darker. The next fall is harder. And the lesson is one that the entire world still has not learned. Karma Unleashed. Until next time.